Fantastic. Looks like we are live. Sorry about this. A minute or so late, but when you try and get some fantastic guest, a minute or so late is fine. So, namaste everyone, wherever you are joining from, and I can see that we are live on my LinkedIn and YouTube channel. So, the tech glitch, something or the other will happen always. But I have two youngsters who know technology far better than me today. So, during the show, if something goes wrong, I will have tech assist with me. But I'm really happy today because this is show number 77. First of all, something that started as a side, I can't even call it a hustle, side hobby during the pandemic, slowly has become 77 shows, and hopefully, with your love and affection, 100 shows very soon. But the reason I'm happy is not just the number, right? Number, eventually, everybody who does keeps doing something, they will get to some number. The reason is that I'm able to bring today some very interesting two guests who I have been following for a couple of years for completely different reasons. I am late in the game in terms of creating content and all. So the only way for me to learn was to go to people who are younger and are cracking it because they know better. And that is when I found two people, Kushal and Ishan, and started following their work. Ishan is, of course, very popular on YouTube as well, and started learning from them. So today is a little bit of a reverse Dronacharya kind of a moment where I have learned from them and I will invite them to the show. So I'll bring them in a minute, but another interesting thing today for everyone is that I have had people younger than me on the show. Of course, there will be people. I've had two people on the show. That is also common. But I have never had a situation where the combined age of both the guests is less than my age. So that is how the world is moving. And of course, the combined age is less than me, but their individual income is more than my individual income. So that is the magnanimity or the situation where we are today. The world is taking over. The youngsters are showing the way, and I'm happy to learn from them. So let me bring in Ishan. And Hey,
Hi,
Ishan,
hi
morning.
Anshuman, how are you?
I am good, good. So glad that you could do this. While you are on screen, I will read out some bits about you. Everybody knows you, particularly on
hmm
YouTube. But Ishan is, of course, a co-founder of MarketUp and a creator with, hold your breath, 1.5 million across LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. His
It's
videos
actually
have,
1.7 million now.
yeah, by the time we wrote it down, so, okay, by the time the show ends, it might become 1.8, so we will wait for that. But such is the pace, If you do good work online, your followership increases. His videos have been watched over 120 million, and correct me if it is 125, Ishan, but
It is
I'm
160 million now.
160. So I have outdated information. My bad. But on YouTube particularly, and has spoken at 21 colleges, including IIT Madras, IIT Jodhpur, LPU, DY Patil, and you name it, right? Um, Very famous story. He enrolled in electrical engineering in BITS Pilani, but ended up dropping out in 2022, right? Last year, Ishan?
That was
Yeah.
March of
So
2022.
yeah, so last year he dropped out of college finally to focus exclusively on his journey to build market up. He is also the author of Crush It on LinkedIn, where he shared how you can use LinkedIn better. But the reason he is here today, I will reveal in a minute after I introduce Kushal also, is about a new book that they both have co-authored. Ishan also has taught Python programming on Unacademy, and his agency, of course, the marketup that he's building is already a 25 member agency or a remote agency which helps people grow their YouTube and Instagram. I can't afford him, so I am doing my own stuff, but hopefully at some point I will be there. I think worthy to mention, important to mention that he started marketup with his college roommate Saransh, and today marketup is quite famous and has already been covered by your Story, which is a popular online stuff. He's already worked with brands like Amazon, Google, Spotify, HubSpot, 3M, Notion, Coursera. I can't keep going on. So once again, Ishan, welcome to the show. Any opening comments?
Thank you, thank you. No, I'm very humbled by whatever you said. Really excited to share my lessons and learnings that I had while writing this book right here.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, I have a copy as well. So we will talk about it now. Now that Kushal can be brought in. Welcome, Kushal. Welcome
Thank
to
you
the
so much,
show.
Mr.
And
Malik.
yeah,
Thanks
very
a lot.
quickly, something about him as well. Kushal is quite popular as well on LinkedIn and now on YouTube as well. Recently, he is a fellow top voice. I think we got the top voice in the same year. Maybe I got in 21, you were in 22. So around the same time. Uh, he's a little bit of a child prodigy, you can say, in the CA world. Uh, got his CA in 2019, and he's already a qualified chartered accountant. Secured All India rank 5. So all my audience, you may not have spoken ever to a All India rank 5 in anything. So today you can. All India rank 5 in CA Inter as well and Foundation as well. 6 in Foundation. He's cleared all levels of CFA and ACCA and is world rank 3 in ACCA in one of the exams. So we have quite some company today. Kushal, you did work for Aditya Birla Group for a couple of years, right? So if I
Yeah.
recall, yeah, I initially saw while I was trying to learn from how you write, and he's now has over 500,000 followers on social media, and also runs a podcast called Conversation with Kushal. He's, of course, like I said, top voice. Both of these people have together written this book, which is Unlocking Unicorn Secrets, which is the reason why they are here today. So we will talk more about this book, but quickly, Kushal, any opening comments?
No, Fleck, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you so much for having us. And this is like a great initiative that you have taken. Of course, it started off as a side hobby in the pandemic, but as it is rightly said, all your passion projects, if they become like full time projects, then there's nothing like it. And you don't have to specifically carve out time for these kind of things. So it's absolutely great to see someone like you doing such a great work.
Thank you, Kushal. And like I said, I've been a fan of both of your works, and it's fun to see how we can learn from the next generation and maybe teach a few things to each other. Okay, back to the book quickly. And the format of the show, Ishan and Kushal, is that I have some prepared questions which I will share with you. I'll ask. Both of you can respond. If I have a specific question to one, I will ask specifically. Otherwise, each question is more or less for both of you. That's how it
Mhm.
works. And we will, of course, share some stories from the fantastic book that you have been able to bring together so that people can make their choice whether they want to eventually go ahead and purchase the book as well. So that's the general format. I will add wherever I can add. And at around mid of the show, we will take questions from the audience depending on how they come. Questions will come on screen. So I will curate that. Hmm? Okay, good with that? Okay,
Yes.
so cool. Ishan, let's start with you. Youngest in the room, so we can do that a little bit bullying in some way. Uh, by the way, my son is 21, so you can imagine how interested and excited I am about this kind of conversation. And I've been telling him that do something like this, but of course, not everybody can. So back to the book. What prompted you to write this book? And you have a very busy schedule. You have a busy day. You're building an agency. It is already doing well, but when something does well, you want to grow it further. I would have thought that Ishan and Kushal, of course, both will not have any time to write a book. This would be last thing on their mind. How did this happen?
So it was back in February of 2022. That is when I visited Kushal at his house in Mumbai. I was living
Hmm.
in Pune back then. Right now I'm in Bangalore. So I visited him. He was an online friend, a social media friend of mine. But then I visited him. We became good friends, and we realized that we are both networking junkies, right? So we both enjoy meeting new people, learning from them, and sort of being out there. And so we realized that it would be so cool if we could meet all the unicorn founders out there. And we realized that all our time on YouTube, on LinkedIn, we've just been spreading awareness, right? Awareness about opportunities in your career, awareness about what you can learn from other people who are crushing it in life. And so I realized that what if we can meet people who are building billion-dollar businesses in the country, and we can document their journeys, document what we've learned from them, and create it into a book format that everyone can consume and will be with them forever for their career, right? So that was the initial thought that we had. It was a very far-fetched dream. We were just talking about it. We were like, just joking कि हाँ हम तो मिल लेंगे सारे founders से, एक किताब बना लेंगे. But then it sort of got serious. We started writing the names of all the founders of all the unicorns, उन सबके emails collect करना, उनको email करना, and then उनको follow up करके making sure that there is a time that they are free in, and then booking the flights, going there, meeting them in person, and then recording that conversation. So it was all of that. We were very excited to meet them, understand what got them here in life, and also sort of share it with our community. So we did like this survey in which we asked people that what would you like more, a podcast, a YouTube video playlist, or would you be interested in doing like a book in which we share all the lessons. And most of them selected the book because all of the learnings will be condensed into just one place, so they don't have to go looking for it anywhere else. And so that's how Unicorn Secret, Unlocking Unicorn Secret started.
That's amazing. I didn't realize that you would have done a survey and then actually listened to what people said.
It's all data
So that is,
driven.
yeah, that is already consumer driven, you can say, or audience driven. But Kushal, you want to add anything to what Ishan said? I'm sure, both of you have your side of the story, even though you co-authored the book. Um, what was your motivation to get into it? We heard Ishan's motivation, and you have written another one. Before this, a very major bestseller on CA, chartered accountancy preparation, which is a fascinating story in itself. But that we'll save for another day.
Yeah.
But इसमें क्या हुआ? What happened? How did this started?
Yeah, sure. So I think just to add to what Ishan mentioned, right? So we just thought that there is no book in India that talks about the startup ecosystem. If anyone wants to start up today, they have a lot of problems and challenges to face, right? From how do you raise capital, how do you find your co-founder, how do you identify whether your idea is going to work or not, how do you hire the first set of people, how do you acquire the first set of customers, and bunch of them. So we thought let's try to ask these problems to founders who have done it, and let's try to write a book which will help all the aspiring entrepreneurs of India in order to just start up. And if they're starting something, they'll have a guiding compass in the sense that they know what to do and what not to do. So a lot of
Hmm.
founders make tons of mistakes, and the best way in order to avoid mistakes is to talk to someone who has made it and ask him or her how to avoid them. And that is why this was the main motivation to write the book. And then Ishan and I just decided that let's write this book. We sent out emails to almost all the unicorn founders of India the next day itself. We did not get a single response. I think we got only one response, but that interview did not end up happening. And then we reached out to the PR teams. We tried to schedule the interviews, and yeah, I mean, it was a cumbersome process, honestly. But at the end of the day, it was worth it. So honestly, like we like took a lot of time. That was my like response. So we had divided the responsibilities between Ishan and me. So reaching
Hmm.
out to the PR teams, getting the interview scheduled was one of my responsibilities, which was there. So I mean, I just remember in terms of I had to explain all the PR teams that why we are the best persons to do this, why we are the best people to interview the founders. Why is it that your founder should come and give us an interview, give us an hour's appointment, and all of that? So that was a very interesting experience. But all in all, I think, as it is rightly said, right, like you learn from the process, irrespective of what the outcome is. So we've learned so much in those 455 days, to be precise, that it's definitely going to help us in order to, let's say, do something in our own life, and it's definitely a good source of inspiration to start something of our own as well.
That's totally awesome. I am still struggling to believe the kind of language and words you are using, guys. So, this is the power of experience. So, to my audience, I want to share that when you do something with your bare hands, and these two people have been doing it with their bare hands for a while now, even though they are young, but they have been doing it for a while, you actually generate that wisdom on your own. So, you don't have to look for reflected wisdom, you don't have to look for wisdom elsewhere, and you can actually start such a project at a young age. But if you have the process and plan, like both of them mentioned, you can go about it. So a little deeper in going into the book, I both of you did share a little about the process of reaching out to find founders. I won't ask you who was the most difficult to get, but who was the easiest to land in the sense that the most fun or the most easy or the most one each. So one with Ishan and one Kushal. Who did you absolutely love? Of course,
Right.
every country is special.
I wouldn't call it easy, but one founder who was the most warm and welcoming was Ashish Mohapatra, right? So he's the founder of business, and we reached out to him, and he himself replied back. There was no PR team involved, and when we reached to his office in Gurgaon, he was waiting for us. He came to the reception, greeted us, took us inside. We got to know that he doesn't have like a proper cabin. He sits right next to the interns, and that was just an amazing experience. And the way he narrated the whole story of building of business, that was just very, very interesting, right? So I think that was one of the best interviews that we've had. Kushal, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think apart from this, I think even one of the interviews with First Cry founder Supam Maheshwari, that was really nice in the sense that we had traveled all the way to Pune, and there was a cricket tournament happening at First Cry, and still it was a Saturday morning, 11 a.m., and still he gave us like 1.5 hours. We had asked for 1 hour only, and the interview ended up getting longer, and it stopped at 1 hour 45 minutes. Then we spent some time with him, and we also tried to understand what can we do better in our lives, etc. That was also one of the most warm interviews and very very enriching. So I still remember that Supam Maheshwari, like he's the founder of three unicorns of India.
Yeah.
So First Cry, Global Bees, and Express Bees. And he's also very media shy in the sense that you won't find him giving a lot of interviews
Anyway,
on TV shows and newspapers and all of that. So we were very happy and we were very honored that he agreed to give us that interview. Although it took us, I think, 3 months in order to convert him. But that was also one of the most enriching and warm interviews we've had.
no, a little bit experience that I have in reaching out to people and converting to coming on camera or even coming for an audio event. Sometimes, like you said, Kushal, this is the most enriching experience because you learn more in that process as well. Because everybody has some genuine reason why, they may be a little reluctant or hesitant to come on camera. Nobody is saying no to help anybody, but there is a process around it, and I'm glad. I'm actually impressed also by the reasons why both of you picked your, I won't say favorites, but the most memorable ones. I'm sure everybody is a favorite in that book, and must be special getting there. Okay. The I had one question, and having helped people write books, and I'm yet to write my own, but I have helped people write books or written chapters in books, and I found it a very very difficult process. So the this process of speaking to people, learning from them, understanding, maybe a recording. Ishan, you do a lot of stuff on YouTube. Kushal has started conversations as well. I've been doing for some time, but I find making a summary out of a podcast or a YouTube show extremely difficult. Tell us a little bit, Ishan, about the process of converting these conversations into into a book that can be consumed. So because I read through 3 4 chapters, I picked some chapters so that I could also gather how you must have written. I can't I can't believe this could be an output of a interview which was a YouTube interview or a recorded interview of some kind. So what was the
Right.
process around? And I'm asking this question with a selfish motive so that I can also learn. And 77 interviews done. So hopefully 10 of them I can convert into a book. But I'm sure it will help. That's on a lighter vein, but it will help audience and people who will watch the show later on as well.
Yeah, for
Anything?
sure. So what happened with us is we were as clueless as anyone is when they're getting started for a book, and especially writing a story of someone's life and how they built up a company is a huge challenge, right? Like I wrote my first book, Crush It on LinkedIn, but that was more of like a guidebook which talks about how can you get started with LinkedIn, how can you optimize your profile. That was comparatively easier for me to write, but in this case I have to be factually correct about every single thing. I have to make sure that everything aligns and I'm able to create a holistic story for that founder and their company. So it was a big task. We did not have the expertise in it. Like obviously you've seen long posts of Kushal writing about his experiences. Even I write LinkedIn posts, but we were not at that point that we would write like a 10 to 20 page long chapter about someone's journey. So we got in touch with with some editors who have experience of writing the book. And we contacted multiple people who have written books. We got in touch with their editors, so we talked to them. We understood how can we go ahead. We picked one person who was really good at it, and they wrote out the basic structure of the book and what the timeline should be like. And then we went deeper into it. We made sure that all the facts are correct. We went through the book multiple times, and that is sort of how it got together. Special thanks to Gaurav Mandlecha, who's my senior from college. He helped me out, and Kushal as well, to brainstorm ki how should it be structured, right? There is one approach to create like a chapter wise thing on every question we ask them. Like one chapter can be just about early childhood. One chapter can be just about funding. One chapter can be just about hiring people. And the other side was that we create individual chapters for each of their stories, right? So one chapter on Oyo, then off business, then Oxizo, and likewise. So we chose to go to the second path because that seemed better for
Hmm.
us. And
Yeah.
so it was just a involvement of a lot of people who had previous experiences. So we're really grateful for them that they came together and helped us draft out the basic structure of it. And then obviously Penguin came in. They helped us with their own experience of writing and publishing books like those.
Awesome. I could understand that you obviously would have taken some editing help, but to think in this structure and all, and I actually preferred, now that you mention Ishan, I was also thinking this book could have been written in terms of stages. But
Hmm.
then, you know, for some startups, the early stage is very short. For some, the scaling up stage is very short, and so on. So you will actually struggle to fit the stories. So this is actually,
We
and
wanted
this
to
is
be
how,
less preachy
sure,
and more of a inspiring story, right? So we
storytelling.
wanted it to be like cohesive in terms of every single founder, and so we kept it like each chapter for one
And I
founder.
can tell you, it has come out like that. So the for anybody who's considering this book, it obviously has stories from Car Dekho, Cars 24, Coin DCX, Daily Hunt, Deal Share, so many of them, First Cry, and my favorite Zerodha. And also Razor Pay, so there are 20 of them. Obviously, I just named few, not that I don't like the others. It's just that in a show you don't, this is not a radio show that we have so many people calling in. But turning to Kushal, Kushal, anything that stood out in the writing of the book that you can share as a lesson for any aspiring writers in the audience? See, you have a probably your background. So while Ishan built his reputation on YouTube videos, you built yours on writing fairly intense LinkedIn posts. You are one of the few top voices who writes fairly detailed posts. And
Yeah.
whenever I would get some trolling or flack on writing long, I would turn to your post and say, "ये लिख सकता है तो मैं भी लिख सकता हूँ यार." So, so I've actually used you as an example in some conversation that long posts can also work. So you have some experience in writing long posts. Of course, each LinkedIn post cannot be more than 3,000 characters. So उसका भी limit है. But anything that stood out for you in your experience of writing this, other than what Ishan just covered?
Yeah, I think Ishan always trolls me for the fact that I write long LinkedIn posts and he's like कि यार इतना कैसे लिख लेते हो आप इतना content कहाँ से आता है वगैरह वगैरह so I resonate when you said that I write long LinkedIn posts but I think writing is like one of the key habits that has really helped me in order to stay focused and in order to just vent out whatever I want. So for example, I started writing I think 2.5 3 years back and I used to write
Yeah.
it on a piece of paper on a diary. And then dire dire I started converting it into LinkedIn posts. And every morning, I think whenever I used to wake up, right? So I used to wake up back when I was in Nasik. I used to wake up at 5:30 a.m. I used to just write for let's say first 30 minutes, and I just used to write anything random, whatever is coming to my mind, because that time is the most productive time, honestly. So, although I mean, I'm a big believer of the fact that writing will help you in order to let's say stay focused. It will also help you in order to articulate your thoughts very effectively. So that is something which helped me in order to write this book as well. And as far as this book is concerned, right? So what stood apart is the question that you asked. I think the thing which stood apart in this book probably would be the advice which all these founders gave. Like I am very much impressed by all the founders' advice which they've given. and few advice they've like stuck in our minds as well. Like for example, Ruchi, who is the founder of Oxyzo, she mentioned that you should all like if you hire A's in your team, they'll hire A's. If you hire B's, they'll hire B's, and if you hire C's, they'll hire C's. So always when you're hiring someone, you have to hire someone who is smarter than you, so that you don't have to look out and you're not concerned about the next hires who are there, because you can't hire everyone. Like if it's a team of 1,000 people, you just have to focus on hiring the first 10 smart people, and those 10 people will hire the next 90, and those next 90 will hire the next 900. So this is like one of the key advice which I think I am also applying it in my own startup as well. Apart from that, one key advice which we've got from Lalit Keshre is that he's the founder of Grow. He mentioned that whenever you are diluting, whenever you are raising capital, don't feel as if you are diluting your stake. Think as if you have sold 10% or 15% of your company. So think as if there is someone who is buying your company. It means it's a validation that you are doing something right. So instead of thinking
Mhm.
it as dilution, think as if you have sold a part of the company, and be happy having a smaller portion of a bigger pie rather than having a bigger portion of a smaller pie. So that is something which we really liked, and we were really impressed by that answer. And the last advice which I think I've inculcated in my mind is of Fractal Analytics founder Shrikant. He mentioned that if you want to raise capital, if you want to raise money, don't go for asking money, go for asking advice. If you want advice, then go for asking money. So I think this is something which is really really helpful, and today it really helps me also. Like if let's say I want to raise capital, right? So I know that meko to aise hi jana hai, I want an advice on my business, and if the founder is really really keen, then I think I mean, they'll definitely put in a check if they like the idea and all. So these are some
Actually,
things which really
while you
stand
were
out in this
speaking,
book that has
while you
helped
were
me.
speaking, I was looking for that quote on
Okay.
the advice and money part, because
Right.
while reading this, I skimmed through. It hit me like a bolt that this is so true. And with some experience in corporate, I've been working for 27, 28 years, a little more than that. But it is so true in corporate life as well that if you want something done, it's best to ask for advice, and
Yeah.
then if it works out, then it may go further. But if you straight away ask for money, or in my world, which is the corporate world, if people straight away ask for a promotion, they usually don't get it,
Yeah.
because then the transaction, it becomes transactional. You ask me for a promotion, the answer is no. Okay, chapter over. Now what next? Right. So same is for money and advice, like you mentioned. So thanks for that. I was able to draw some parallel. When the next time I apply for a promotion, I will use the trick. But let's get some audience questions. A good friend of mine, Anand Kashampayan, he's a career coach and is building in his channel on YouTube. So Ishan, we will ask you for some free advice on YouTube later on. But Anand has reached I think 75K or something on YouTube through career advice. So he's doing well in the last year. But his question is around, and you can see it on the screen as well. In your research for this book, did you identify any common traits or strategies that were particularly unique to Indian startups as compared to unicorns from other parts of the world? So, of course, you did not study other parts of the world, but anything that stood out, Ishan, in your combined study of these unicorns?
Hmm. Kushal, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things. So thanks for this question, Anand. That's a brilliant question. Although, like, yeah, Anshuman mentioned that we've not studied other unicorns of the world, but what I feel is, in terms of unicorns of India, right, the common traits or strategies that were particularly unique were firstly the execution part, where like all of these founders were hardcore executioners. Even after having a replicated idea, all they focused was on the execution part and not the innovation part. That is one learning or strategy that I remember. The second one would be that all of these founders would have failed in their earlier ventures, or maybe like this is one trait which I really really like about all the founders. They would have failed in some of the other previous ventures, and they still did not want to get a job, and they wanted to build something on their own, and that is something which really drove them in order to build something. For example, just to give you some context, so Lalit Keshre, he started an edtech company back in I think 2010 or 11, and it was well ahead of their time, and they used to do a test prep kind of a they had built a test prep kind of a platform. but it did not succeed because edtech was not even like a boom, and that was not even like the word in 2010-11, and they had to stop that company. And then he started grow. So again, like he had failed in his first startup, and then he started grow, which is like very successful today, which is a $3 billion company. The second example is of Ankush Sachdeva. He mentioned to us that he had literally failed 15 times before starting ShareChat. And ShareChat, I think today they are like $5 billion company, and they had also failed. Like Ankush had failed almost 15 times in his previous startups, which is not covered by any of the journalists, or even it's not there in the media as well. That is the trait which I really like about driving and just ensuring that you are doing the best, irrespective of whether you are failing or not. Talking about Ashwin Dhamera, who's the founder of Eruditus as well, although he did not fail in his previous venture, but he was not able to give return to his investors. For example, the first venture which he started on, the travel tech company, he was like he had good valuation in 2008 to exit, but then because of the Lehman Brothers crisis which was there, what happened was the valuation had gone down, and the
Mm.
housing.com bubble burst happened in 2008, and they were just barely they were able to return the money which they had taken from the investors. So still he wanted to build something, and he did not go back to a job and started Eruditus in 2010. And today, again, as you know, like it's a $3.2 billion company and the second largest edtech in India. So that is one trait which I really admire about all these founders. And as far as strategies are concerned, I think although most of these unicorns would be loss making, but their path towards profitability was something which I really liked when we asked a question about valuations versus profitability. So that is something which really helped us also to determine that although profitability is not something which they have right now, but let's say after 6 months or after 1 year, they have a clear cut path to profitability. So these are some of the traits or strategies that I really admired about all these unicorn startups.
Fantastic. So, Anand, I hope you had your answer. Of course, some of these things, and I've been studying books and all for some time, and the one comparison I can see, of course, from a little global point of view, is that the Indian consumer is different, right? So the Indian consumer, the discretionary income that is available to consumers is different from global one. So that is one. And two, tech is now very dominant in India. Most of the startups have a very solid tech interface because that gives you scale. Of course, we can thank the telecom companies for the penetration in India, because people may not have water, but they have mobile and internet connection. So that actually is pretty unique compared to the world. And there are quite a few studies which say that apart from South Korea and Philippines and some of these countries, there is no parallel example of such deep penetration. Therefore, you can build a product which has a mobile front end and go as deep as possible into the population. So you don't have to restrict to a city, for example,
Yeah,
uh, which
I
I
agree.
think YouTube or something also taught us that if you have a screen, you have an internet connection, you have 1 point whatever 140 crore people are actually your audience, not just 5
Right.
crore or 1 crore.
No, I
Sorry,
agree,
Kushal,
and
you
I
were
think
saying
one more
something.
difference, yeah, one more difference between I think the US unicorns and the Indian unicorns. Although like I've not gone into the financials and all these details of US unicorns, but what I've realized is that, as you rightly mentioned, the paying capacity of the audience in US is much higher as compared to the paying capacity in the Indian audience. Although their
Mm,
population is quite lower as compared to the Indian population, but if you talk about the paying capacity and if you talk about the purchasing power parity which is there, I think that is something which is quite good in the US. So, for example, if since we are talking about the creator economy, right? So, just to give you some statistic and example, the cost per thousand impression, which is the CPM in India, on an average, it's around $1.2 to $1.5, which is $15 in the US, I don't know, $10 to $15, and that is primarily because brands are paying more in the US because they know that the audience has a higher paying capacity. So, this is just a simple example of the difference in the kind of payment, difference in the kind of audience which is there in India as compared to the US. And I've also seen all these Indian unicorns, right? Fractal Analytics today has majority of their revenues coming from the non-India market, like the outside India market, which is the US markets. You talk about Eruditus and Emeritus, 70% of their revenues are coming from outside India as well, like more than that. So all I'm trying to say is that these unicorns which are there, they have also found a way to become global. So most of these
correct.
unicorns also have their revenues coming from outside India, and you will be surprised to know that majority of their revenues are coming from outside India as well, and that is also one of the reasons that their revenues are scaling significantly. So when Emeritus partnered with like brands like Harvard, Wharton, Columbia, their revenue shot up significantly, and that is also one of the reasons of their success. And they were able to raise such a big amount of capital and becoming the second largest tech as well.
You can let them know that I contributed $3,000 to their revenue
Okay.
couple of years ago. I did a
Okay.
course from Emeritus,
Got it.
and it was a combined course from I think MIT, Tuck, and Columbia.
Right.
But you're right. For me, that education at $3,000 was a little bit of a, I won't say a steal, but was certainly a lower price point, and that helped me sign up. So
Yeah.
fantastic. Okay, just taking a couple of more questions. Jayant has a question which is slightly deeper. In your conversation with these unicorns, did they initially start business with purpose or intention to make profits? It's a little cheeky question, uh, but knowing Jayant for some years, I can pardon him for that. You want to take this or we pass? We know the answer, so
No, I think like they were all like, for example, Ashish Mohapatra, right? He talked about how he used to sell coal while he was in his teen years, and he learned all about how to do business, right? During that experience, then he went to work as a consultant. Then he came back, and then he started his own company. So all of that learnings of selling coal and doing the side hustles when he was little came all together, and that's how he was able to go big on off business.
yeah, I mean that goes along with saying that the few founders I know may not be unicorns, but on their way, everybody wanted to solve something. So they all jumped in, and that's when you have the drive when you want to solve something. Otherwise, you can't sustain actually because
Creating value basically for,
you
and
have to
then
create
profits will
value
follow.
for somebody, and money will follow because eventually people whose problems you are solving will pay in some way. Um Okay, so Anand has just replied saying that he's ordering the book. Anand, well done, Anand. So others who are listening to Anand can take note. Okay, ah, Mukesh has asked a question which I would have asked, and this question might be there for both. Both are great content creators. How do you manage your schedules? Uh, and of course, this question comes from the fact that both of you have very busy day life in terms of having um content creation and all, and both of you are young, so I'm sure you have a nightlife as well. So, where do you find the time to do all this work? And there must be some system, so I'm not too willing to consume that there is no system. There will be some system. It may be a slightly unorthodox system compared to what somebody like me at 51 will have, but we would all like to learn your system. So one by one, Ishan, first you, and then Kushal, over to you.
Yeah, yeah. No, so you might think that I'm like a very busy person. I used to be like that, like doing meetings every single hour and having my calendar completely booked and being like कि मैं तो बहुत busy हूँ, काम कर रहा हूँ, काम कर रहा हूँ. But then I realized this thing like last year after I got hospitalized and I was just hustling every single time. I realized that it's important to have an empty calendar, right? So I think that an empty calendar is a luxury that I should be able to afford as I progress in my career. And of course, I think Kushal will disagree with me on that, and it's completely fine. But I've just realized this one thing. So for example, today, right, I just have 2 to 3 meetings for about half an hour each, including this one, and the rest of the time is just me reading some books, watching some documentaries, documenting my learnings, and then I think that allows me to be more creative with the content I can create and with what I can bring to the table in my marketing agency. And I think that is very important for anyone who's thinking of, having that outlier success, because on content on YouTube, you really have to be in the blue ocean, right? You cannot be making what everyone else is making, because then you will start to have average results. Like there will be no USP that you offer that others do not. So I think that I like to have an empty calendar, and I think that's what Naval also talks about in his videos and learnings.
Yeah, and that quickly reminds me, you both might be knowing Akshat Srivastav, a finance economic content creator. We were on a show recently, this earlier this week itself, and he also said that the way he's able to manage all this is because he's probably does not have more than 2 3 live meetings a month. So he's trying to do everything over email or messaging and say that that gives me the freedom to choose when I want to reply and not reply it each time. So I can create my own calendar. Um I in that 1 minute I learned a lot from that conversation, and something similar. Ishan, you were saying that I and everybody remembers your story about you being unwell last year, and I'm glad that very early in your career you realized that. But
Yeah, no, I actually met Akshat last month
ah,
itself. I visited South Goa at his place,
ah,
spent a good whole day with him, and I realized this one thing. So I was like, "क्या करते हो आप पूरे दिन?" So he was like, "कुछ नहीं, थोड़ा सा वीडियो
वो
बनाता
तो
हूँ." And then I researched थोड़ा सा, and then I watched Netflix. So I'm like, "That is very cool. Did not
he's
expect that."
next level chill. Totally next level chill. I can't believe I had to be on the show with him, with he saying the words in his own voice to believe him. So maybe one day when I get him on my show, I'll ask him pinpoint question. कि, ईशान ने पूछा है. Now you tell me. Okay. But you are in Bangalore, man. We should try and meet up. I know you are busy, but now I also know that you are not super busy. So I'll find some time maybe to catch up.
For sure.
Kushal, any response from you? You are also, start working on an agency, so similar content creation and other things. But your response could be different. So just asking you about how do you manage your schedule and time?
Yeah, so I think the way I manage is I have everything calendarized. So right from let's say having lunch, having dinner, going to the gym, playing table tennis, talking to parents, everything is calendarized. It helps me to stay focused. And as of now, I think I am at that juncture of my life where I'll have to hustle because I'm the sole founder of my tech company, and it requires like a lot of time in order to handle operations, handle marketing, do like sort out a lot of things, hiring, etc. So that's why, like, as of now, I think for the next 6 to 12 months, it's going to be little hectic for me in the sense that everything is going to be calendarized and it's going to be like super hectic. But that's the fun. I think once you're able to add value and once you're on your toes 24/7, that really helps you to drive and that really helps you to add value to your audience and to your customers as well. So I think I prefer everything being calendarized. Like I'll have back-to-back calls or some of the other thing calls with customers, calls with let's say faculties who are going to teach, calls with some B school students who are studying in the US to understand how is their education system different, call with like other students who have taken courses from some of our competitors to understand what are they doing better. So a lot of things are going on, but it really helps me to understand and it gives a lot of insights honestly. So there are three ways people can get insights. Like one is reading from books, second is listening to podcasts, third is talking to people. And I'm a big believer of the fact that, or maybe I practice the third one way much more as compared to the first and second one. I get a lot of insights after talking to a lot of people. So I think that is the way I manage my time. And as of now, like Monday to Sunday is working. Of course, like I'm not telling everyone to work 7 days a week, but as of now, that's the thing which is happening for me because I've recently started and it's going to require like some amount of time in order to run the company on an autopilot mode. So Ishan rightly said that I'll disagree to the calendar wala point which he mentioned, but he also knows that. And whenever we meet, I block the calendars. I send him a calendar invite, so it helps me stay focused, and it also helps him understand that kitna time यहाँ पे रुकना है. So that is something which I do.
So कितना टाइम और रुकना है आपको इस कॉल में? 10 more minutes, right? So
No,
but
nothing like
I was thinking this calendarizing thing actually is becoming very popular now. I started using it a couple of years ago after being in a corporate job. Sometimes your life can be very chaotic,
that.
and it's no different from actually a startup life because we think that startup life is very different. Corporate can also be because people want your time, especially when you get a little senior, and you can't say no because you are there for your people. So what I started doing is that I started calendarizing one-on-one meetings months in and weeks in advance, and both of us know that that's the time they are ready, I am ready. We have that conversation. There's a boundary limit, like Kushal said, and अगर उससे ज़्यादा चाहिए तो then book another time. So that makes, of course, this is very well described. Those who are book lovers, you know that I like to share books around topics. There's a fantastic book by Neer Eyal called Indistractable. Indistractable is a book about this thing. How can you reduce your distractions and focus more on work that you want to do? Okay, we are now coming towards the end of the show, but I quickly wanted to remind everyone, those who are glued into ISRO's Aditya L1 show, the launch is in 5 minutes. So I will not mind if you go for 2 minutes, watch the live, uh, you know, take off and come back. But that is much bigger than anything else. So those who are interested in science and that kind of thing and want to catch that live can do that. It's in, I think, India time 11:51. It is 46 now. Let's take one more question. Um, you know, after meet Abu Ikhtiar Alam is or Alam is asking a question around, after meeting with unicorn founders, what are the three key differences between normal founders? Normal as in those who are not yet unicorns or maybe have given up or other things, and unicorn founder that you have noticed.
I think that it's their capability to think big, even when they're starting small, right? So, for example, Vikram Chopra, when he started Cast 24, he said that it was just him and his WhatsApp group in which he was trying to sell the second-hand cars and all that with the dealers, and that was all. Right now, you would never expect anyone normal who's doing this would never expect that that would turn into a huge company. They would have a website and everything. So I think it is that. It is also, for example, Amit Jain from Car Dekho, right? I was asking him this question that how do you make sure that you know everything about your customer? So he was telling me that he is having this obsessive attention to detail about his customer. He knows exactly how much time do they spend on his website before making the decision to buy a car, second-hand car from his place and all. So it was it so they knew exact numbers, right? So how much time do they spend on the main page, what all, how many revisits do they do? So I think it's all of that, the obsessive attention to detail, and then secondly their ability to think big even while starting small.
That's fantastic. Kushal, anything that you recall?
Sure. So, thanks for asking the question. I think three key differences. Number one would be whenever you are getting successful, having a humble approach, like not getting egoistic and not taking that success to your head, but taking that success to your heart and celebrating it and then moving on again. That is one. A lot of founders get early success, and I think early success can become toxic at times in the sense that they become egoistic after a point in time, which might not let them progress after a point in time. So, like, this might sound cliche, but that is something which we have realized after meeting all of them. Humility is something which is very, very important. The second key difference would be about the fact that Ishan mentioned. I think big dreams, staying ambitious. Most of these founders are over ambitious, and they are like, "कि हाँ, मतलब कुछ तो like करेंगे." As in, like, they have these big dreams. Like, there are some people or some founders who are like कि नहीं, मतलब इतना मेरे को तो बनाया नहीं है यूनिकॉर्न, या तो मेरे को तो इतना बड़ा कुछ करना ही नहीं है, and they are happy and settled with like smaller dreams as well. I'm not saying that it's wrong, but I'm saying that people are different in terms of dreaming and people are different in terms of having an ambition. And that is the second difference. The third difference, I think, between unicorn founders and normal founders would be about the speed of execution. I think that these people have a really, really very high speed of executing things. Like, to put it differently, right, the difference between an entrepreneur and an employee is that an entrepreneur will act first and then think, an employee will think first and then act. So these are all, like, all of them are like they'll act first and then think, which is a good quality in the sense that abhi execute ho gaya hai, and then thinking about how can we improve from the mistakes. So that is something which really motivated all of them in order to just be hardcore executioners, which is like one of the key qualities of all the successful founders of India today.
Yeah, some level of relentlessness is required. Persistence. Because there will be, it will not be easy, and obviously, like you said, Kushal, I think very rightly that not everybody wants to become a unicorn also. So some may prefer profitability early also, and they may say, okay, I want 20% profit in everything I do, so I will not grow beyond that 20% both hai, or whatever some number. Fair enough. Um, Rashmi has a question, but Rashmi, I will take this question. If everything is calendarized, don't you feel a burnout? Rashmi ji, these people are 21 and 24, right? So you and I are not in that category. So करने दो जो कर रहे हैं. They have the energy, they have the drive right now. Some years down the line, you and I will be happy that we were in this show together with two fantastic, very popular people. They already are popular, but more power to them. And I'm in that category where I can even give blessings also. So I'll do that. But
No, if I
I'll
can, if you can just give me a minute to answer that.
sure, sure,
So,
sure.
so, so yeah, that question was for me. I know that. So basically, Rashmi, thanks for asking this. So I get this a lot of times. Like a lot of people ask me that, don't you feel burnout and don't you feel like, अरे यार बहुत ज़्यादा हो रहा है, exhausted and all of that. But see, honestly, it has become more like a passion. मतलब it's more like कि if everything is calendarized, तो मतलब मैं भूल नहीं जाता हूँ. So for example, I don't want to forget things. So there are so many things which are happening. So it really helps me कि okay ये meeting, okay ये अभी ये हो रहा है, ये इसके बाद ये होने वाला है. So if there is some important one, it helps me to prepare 15-20 minutes in advance, like 15-20 minutes prior to the meeting. I'll also prepare in the sense that मुझे क्या पूछना है ये meeting में, मुझे क्या बताना है, if it is a meeting where I have to present, etc. So I think that has really helped me in order to stay a little focused and stay organized. So time to time, agar like if everything is working from time to time, it really helps me to manage my things properly, and that's the main reason that I feel that time management or maybe time prioritization, that is something which helped me in order to just do all these things at the same time. So I get this question a lot, how do you do multiple things at the same time? Content creation ho gaya, book writing ho gaya, you're running your own edtech startup, so all of these are like full time jobs in itself. But once you're able to prioritize them and kaun si priority kab aayegi, then I think calendarizing them really helps me in order to just stay focused and just stay, ensure that okay aaj ye priority hai, then next priority is this, etc. So I think networking, meeting new people, talking on calls with them, it's like one of my hobbies. So I don't feel it part of my work, and I just feel as if I'm doing some passion project, or I'm just doing something for having fun. And that's why I think that's the best way to calendarize, and that's the best way to avoid burnout, because that's not work at the end of the day. So that's just a passion, or that's just some fun which you're doing. So I would answer it that way.
Glad you said that. And
Rashmi is saying she's 24 too.
Rashmi has a fantastic comeback, comeback, and this comeback is for me. Thank you, Rashmi. My apologies. I only went by your question and not by knowing you. So glad that you clarified. My apologies. Fantastic. Okay. As we get closer to the end of the show, one quick reminder to everybody that next week's show is around diversity, equity, and inclusivity, so DEI, which is very important at workplace. So we will be talking to two proponents of this, Dr. Prachi Thakur and Vanaja Pillai. Vanaja is a classmate of mine as well, who's doing very well in this. They are doing really well, good work in this space. So I will, of course, talk about that session later during the week. Okay. So last bit of couple of questions, and as we go towards the end, quick reminder to everybody: this is the book that we are talking about. Fantastic compilation. If you have, I would say that this is Shark Tank on steroids. So if you saw people on there, this is the book you want to read, because there it is an entertainment show. This is the education that you will get. So what else are you reading? Both of you give those kind of vibes that you might be reading quite a bit. So don't say I'm wrong. But Ishan, first with you, what are you reading these days? Or if you don't read at all, then what are you watching?
No, I read all the time. So, for example, from yesterday, I started this challenge called the 75 Hard Challenge, in which you basically, for 75 days, you have to follow 5 rules, which is like, you read at least 10 pages of the book, you drink 3 liters of water, you take care of your health, you go work out, you go for a walk. And so, currently, the book I'm reading right now is this one, The Courage to Be Disliked. It's a very interesting book which talks about Adlerian psychology. So I'm reading about this. Very interesting book.
This is a this is I think my book of 2021. So I review books every Monday and post a review on LinkedIn. I think last for about 20 months now. So I think this was in the top 5 last year, and really loved how. Yeah, I didn't know about. Of course, everybody knows about Freud and other famous psychologists, but this one is really deep.
The third giant that it says.
Third giant. Actually, in his time, nobody realized he was that good. And many years later, and that happens to some people, many years later, they started realizing that this was a very deep, deep work. Kushal, what are you reading?
I read Ishan's LinkedIn posts. That's the thing I keep reading.
उतना ही बहुत
तो
है.
या उसका वो उसमें उसमें जो ज्ञान मिलता है उससे मैं लाइफ में सक्सेसफुल बन जाऊंगा, इज व्हाट आई फील आफ्टर रीडिंग दोस लिंक्डइन पोस्ट. So there, that was on a lighter note. So honestly, I mean, I used to read, but like lately, I've not been able to find time, or maybe I that's not in the top priority as of now. So I've not been reading any book as such as of now. But there are two, three books which are there in the pipeline. Like one is the book called as Startup to Proficon by Rajesh Jain. I think he sold his company for 500 crores in 1999, and he has written a book on his biography, on his journey. That is one book which I want to read.
India Infoline guy, no?
Yeah,
So India.
yeah. Correct,
Hmm.
correct. So that is something I think he has just sent the book last week, so I would read that. Apart from that, other book which I wanted to read was this, yeah, Sarthak Ahuja's book on Founders Office. So that is also it's in there in my bucket list. I think he sent me, I think, couple of weeks back, but I did not get time to read. But that is something I've like read a lot of positive reviews about it, and I know Sarthak personally, like he's a very dear friend, and he's one of the smartest persons I've also met. So that is some one book which is there on my bucket list, and I think the third one is something on entrepreneurship itself. So I might pick up something like, let's say, Ashni Grover's Doglapan. That is something which I wanted to read from long, but I maybe if I get some time, I'll read about that. So entrepreneurship books and business books, I think these books are something which I'm a big fan of, honestly, and they really help to get a lot of crisp and deep insights.
Okay, since I asked the question, I will also share. I am reading Go Giver. Go Giver is by Bob Berg, which is about a philosophy about how we can keep giving in life and gain more internally. And that's also another way of looking, not similar to Adler, but very giving kind of person. And he's shared a lot of stories around uh, people. So I'll send you all details of that book. A fantastic book,
Sure.
recommended by Papa CJ, one of India's top comedians, a good friend of mine. So I don't take his recommendation lightly. May- That's what I'm reading. Okay, we are at the end of the show. Thank you once again. But before you go, 1 minute pitch for your book from Ishan and then from Kushal.
Sure. So, Unlocking Unicorn Secret is out now on Amazon. You can learn about the journeys of 20 unicorn founders, of how they went from early childhood to their college time to building a billion-dollar company in India, which would give you tons of insights into your own career and how can you build a big venture in your life in India itself.
Fantastic. That was less than a minute. Well done, Kushal.
Ishan is a very good salesman, actually. Like he knows how to sell, and he's a very good marketeer as well. So I had
So उसी
requested
का
him
we
that if
clip बना
I,
देंगे. We'll make that clip and send it over. वही वो last
yeah,
30 seconds का clip.
yeah, if I have told him if I want to hire someone for marketing and sales, please, you come and just help me build my startup. But
So
yeah, I
अभी
mean,
हायर
so
अभी हायर
sorry,
कर लो.
sorry.
नेक्स्ट ईयर अभी हायर कर लो. नेक्स्ट ईयर रेट बढ़ जाएगा तो फिर मुश्किल हो जाएगा. So
Yeah, I agree.
sorry, you
So
were
yeah,
saying
guys, I
something.
think Unlocking Unicorn Secrets is now out on Amazon, and again, like if you want to get inspiration and motivation about how do you start up, how do you find your customers, how do you build a product, how do you raise capital if you want to, and mostly how is your vision aligned with your co-founders and all of that. So just make sure that you're buying this book in order to get a lot of inspiration. We have met all these 20 unicorn founders, and it's all of these content have been coming from there, so it's right from the horse's mouth. So basically it's actually it's already vetted, and if you are someone who would also want to know more about the startup ecosystem in general, the sectors, and how do you build companies, then this is the perfect book for you. And it's there in Amazon, it's there in Crossword, it's there in all the offline bookstores near you. So make sure to purchase them and also give us a frank feedback in terms of which chapter do you like the most and what kind of books do you want to write us going forward as well.
Fantastic. Okay, it is noon, and as promised, I didn't want to take more time. Both of you have quite a lot of other things to do. Thank you very much for doing this. I know, a live show is sometimes a little tricky, but thanks a lot. I am glad we pulled this off, and more power to this book and many more coming. So I will, of course, keep a track on both of you are doing, and hopefully, since Ishan is in Bangalore, we might meet one of these days.
Absolutely. Let's meet.
Sure. Can Kushal, if you are visiting, let me know. We can try and find
Sure,
some time. With that,
definitely.
and with our best wishes, I'll let you both go. And thank you to my audience. If you learned something in this show, audience, and you are on LinkedIn, or if you saw this on YouTube as well, do some homework. Don't let this 1 hour go waste, right? Whether you buy the book or not is not important. What three things you learned in this session? I'm sure you learned quite a bit. Make a post out of it, tag the three of us. We will try and respond to your post. So इससे आपका एक post भी बन जाएगा, and then you would, of course, since you would have to write down, you would have learned something as well. So with that, thank you very much. Bye bye everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye bye.